Hi everyone, I am Charvi Dikshit and I'm an intern at Ishan Khosla Design. Ishan sir couldn't make it for some reason. So I am here on behalf of him to talk about the topic. So handcrafted beauty in a functional typeface. Can decorative ornaments and functionality coexist? What is beauty? Is it a universal concept or does it vary culturally? Does the inclusion of ornamentation and hence intricacy and detail make something beautiful? Do ornament and beauty work in opposition to functionality? These are the few topics we'll be looking into today. So since the dawn of the 20th century, art and design in modern era have been about the rejection of the ornament and decoration in favor of the aesthetically minimal and sparse. Deemed very middle class, the ornamentation was considered passe and representation of royalty as it was patronized by them. The rejection came out of the numerous revolutions against the ideology of the monarchy and what it stood for, as well as for the promotion of political system based on equality, freedom, and democracy. Minimalism has then been deemed and to the beauty and utility. This started with the French Revolution and spread across Europe during the 18th and the 19th centuries. This posed the death of Neil and William Morris's art and craft movement of the mid-19th century and led to the avant-garde modernist and rationalist era of the early 20th century, with movements such as Futurism and Dada that extolled the machine aesthetic in favor of the handmade. Functionality rather than formal beauty began to be emphasized with the famous maxim, form follows function, by Louis Civilian, which epitomizes and which is kind of like the epitome of the time. Simultaneously, the birth of the Industrial Revolution and mature global markets under the colonial rule meant metrication, simplification, and universalization. Modernization in India was a result of Western colonization of the country. While most Western countries have moved away from modernist viewpoints, Indian design education and thus mainstream design sensibility in the country is still stuck with the modernist paradigm. However, the reality on the ground in both urban and rural India is quite the opposite to the minimal design aesthetic being taught in the country. I believe it is time to rethink what Indian design and type design should be about and take inspiration from. It is also time to reevaluate the outmoded precepts of design that are blindly being followed in the country in the favor of the sensibility that is sensitized to the way we Indians behave, dress, travel, create, and live. I believe it is time to rethink what Indian design type should be and take inspiration from. The other thing is ornament, which is such an important aspect of the idea of beauty in the Indian environment, an oxymoron for type design. Or can ornament and typography coexist? To understand beauty, form, and function in typography in relation to type design in India, one must question what beauty means in the Indian context. This maximalization of covering the surface with ornamental decoration is viewed as tantamount to beauty in India. You can see this from the women's shringar, when the women decorate themselves, or the way men decorate their vehicles and cattle, by completely covering the surface with ornaments, and there's no real sense of negative space in this matter. Beauty from the Indian perspective, as seen in craft, is about using every square inch of space for surface decoration and ornamentation. The idea of packing, intricacy, and density is really a key aspect of the Indian aesthetic sense. We Indians value something more, if it's intricate, detailed, and ornate, as that implies greater workmanship and richness, since it is of greater value and appreciation, it is considered to be more beautiful. However, ornamentation is not merely decoration. In many communities, ornamentation has a function and meaning, whether ritualistic, social, or economic. For instance, tribes in central India are covered with tattoos or gondna applied by Gond tribeswomen. Each tattoo has a function related to the rites of passage of a woman from puberty, marriage, and on to childbirth. So there are different Gond motifs here that are inspired from the Gond art. These tribes, they follow all these tattoos, and the women get tattooed on themselves, like inscribed on themselves. Similarly, ornamentation in the form of embroidery in Kutch has a functional aspect, where women from a young age start embroidering their other dresses, including handkerchiefs and bags and things that they carry bottles in especially. It is said that the most beautiful clothing will attract the most handsome suitor. The embroideries not only create a unique identity for each community, but like the Gondna tattoos, embroideries help signify social structures related to rites of passage. For instance, the variation of pattern, density of embroidery, and color are used to differentiate between unmarried, married, and widowed women. Thus, ornamentation and decoration have a very strong functional aspect to it. The differences in the style of the stitch, the design, color, density, and embroidery create distinctions that identify a community, sub-community, and status within the community. Thus, the embroidery of each community, there are over different 20 communities that are now residing in Kutch and practice their own craft. This is unique. One can identify a group with the look at their clothing. So here, all the embroideries are different. This is a toran that is specifically found in Gujarat and other parts of India also mostly, but it's something that you put on the entrance of your house as a welcome. So this is sort of a logo that was made, and all the embroideries are unique in itself. They're combined together to show unison here. And then there are weaves, there are different other crafts. So we launched the Typecraft Initiative in 2012 with the aim to unite type design, livelihood, creation, and the preservation of Indian crafts and tribal arts. The latter tend to be highly ornamental in nature, but rather than suppress this. We have embraced this aspect in the creation of the digital typefaces. So as you can see, craft is mostly handmade, and design is mind. You brainstorm and you come up with ideas. Craft is mostly associated with villages, design is associated with cities. Skill and technology, natural material, artificial materials. Craft is termed poor in some or the other way. Design is rich. Craft is associated with East, and design is associated with West. It's more traditional and then modern. Decorative, design is minimal. Craft is community-based, while design is individualistic. So ultimately, the initiative is meant as a way for craftspeople and tribal artisans to think in new ways. In a world where they are no longer able to sustain themselves solely through time-honored networks and systems. The traditional way of life is changing very quickly. The beauty and authenticity of their work, however intricate and detailed, doesn't have the value that it had once. We believe that we need to engage with craft in new ways in order to create narratives that are appropriate to the world of today. The old ways of craft narratives have lost their relevance in today's technology-driven world. By innovating their craft into a new visual language with a different function, that is typography and communication, while keeping its original sanctity of the craft intact. We hope to find new audiences for these crafts that were not even aware that the craft of these, that behind a craft there are so many people involved. The idea is to not also just to innovate, archive, and celebrate the crafts, the tribal arts of India. This project is, in a way, an ethnological study of the people we collaborate with through the lens of design. For us, functional type design was one way to make a difference in the craft communities. So the Gond tribe is from Chhattisgarh. This was inspired by the tattoo art that they do. The initiative aims to raise funds for those artisans and craftspeople involved in the collaborations. The wider goals are to inspire, create awareness, generate further interest in the history, context, work, and life of the people we collaborate with. Whether the typefaces created end up making money or not, the craft people are always paid in advance. With the funds raised are used to cover costs and initiate new projects with other tribal and craft artisan groups. So these are the letters from the Gond typeface that was created. Like in the first slide, you saw there was Mumbai written. So it's an actual functional typeface that you can download and type in. So for this project, we worked with tribal women from the state of Chhattisgarh. The Gond tattoo artists would traditionally sustain their livelihoods by applying Godna tattoo on other tribal women, such as the Baiga tribe. To create a tattoo, a number of natural ingredients are used to create the paste that they apply, that finally engraves inside the body. In previous times, the thorn of a babool tree was used to piece the skin into a cluster of needles are used. So as tribal communities migrating to the cities for work in an urban environment, they feel embarrassed by the tattoos, and hence they get fewer tattoos done today. So a lot of this craft is declining. So you mostly see older women nowadays covered in these tattoos, traditional tattoos. They have diversified their art, and they've moved to sustain themselves by applying these traditional motifs to scarves, bed sheets, and even on walls. This is one example of it. The different artisans, tattoo artists we work with from Godna were these. It's their name written in the font that they made. Since they're from a remote village and don't know English nor the Latin script, we didn't ask them to draw the letters straight away. Instead, we began our exchange by asking them to draw various tattoo designs and explain their meaning to us. Each of these motifs here have a symbolism dating back to thousands of years. There are several rituals and beliefs associated with the application of tattoos, such as its ability to heal disease and reduce pain from scorpion bites. They also believe that the tattoos, unlike gold and silver jewelry, stay with you even after one dies. After the first week of our exchange, by the time women were more comfortable, we asked them to start drawing letters. Initially with no instructions, so they were free to create the letters as they wanted to. These are some of the initial letters created by them. As they were illiterate and they did not understand English, there were a lot of different difficulties that we faced because they were not familiar with the language. As you can see here, while the letters are beautiful and raw, but they don't have the consistency and the structure which are vital to a typeface. Then we conducted a workshop over a few days and got the women to practice the creation of the letters in proportion, as per the rules of typography. So the cap heights and the other technical issues were like, they were restricted to that, but they were free to choose their own patterns and everything. These are the variation of motifs in the letter. They were created by 3 different artisans, so all the motifs were different. Then we moved on to the vectorization stage. The scans were analyzed and discussed, and the outlines were created from the original art forms. So each of these letters have 5,000 nodes. That's usually not how typography works, but this was one limitation that we faced. The similar other craft that was worked on was called chitara. So this is a form of painting on walls that was then taken and created into a typeface. And the current project is in collaboration with a community of Soda Rajputs from Kutch. The embroidery is called Pakko, and Pakko basically means dense in Gujarati. So it's a Gujarati typeface that is being currently worked on. Thank you so much.